how does a family that had it all, fame, fortune, hit records, adoring fans, end up shattered, grieving, and nearly extinct? And how does a mother go from managing two of the biggest pop stars of the early 2000s to becoming the most controversial figure in their downfall? And maybe the most disturbing question of them all is, was she ever a real mother at all? See, this isn't just a story about bad parenting. It's about narcissism disguised as love. It's about what happens when your mother treats your life like a product that she could package and sell. This is the story of Jane Carter and the children that she eventually destroyed in the pursuit of success. When we talk about Jane, it's easy to treat her story as this one-off, a uniquely toxic cocktail of stage mom narcissism, family dysfunction, and generational addiction. But if you zoom out just a little, you realize Jane is definitely not an isolated case. She is part of a pattern. And to really understand the scope of her damage, it helps to hold her up next to another cautionary tale from the same playbook. Kit Culkin, the father of Macaulay Culkin.
I haven't spoken to him in 30-something years. Oh, he deserves it too.
Yeah.
You know, he's a man who had 7 kids, and now he has 4 grandkids, and none of them want anything to do with him.
Because when you line up their stories side by side, Jane and Kit, you stop seeing this as just a bad mom or a bad dad situation.
Hurts. It
In a mother and her 17-year-old boy. How does it feel when you hear your mother saying things about you?
It hurts. It really hurts. I just want her to love me, you know? I just want her to be my mom. Is that too much to ask for?
Why do you...
What you see instead is a systemic pathology. The way certain parents, driven by ego, with unmet dreams, and sometimes outright delusion, turn their children's talent into currency, where fame becomes the family business, and the child is just the product. And that's why this comparison matters. It isn't about pitting one horror story against another. It's about naming the larger sickness. It's about recognizing that the damage done to child stars doesn't always start in Hollywood. A lot of times, it starts at home. So when we talk about Jane Carter, we're not just talking about one woman's failure as a mother. We're talking about a broader sickness disguised as success. And it's a sickness that hides between red carpets, record deals, and screaming fans. And before this tragedy, there was a false fantasy going on. It was a fantasy that wasn't real. Let's go back to the beginning, when the Carters seemed like the luckiest family in America. Nick was a teen heartthrob in the Backstreet Boys. Aaron was the golden-haired kid brother with a chart-topping hit. And from the outside, they were living the dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was the beginning of a nightmare. Have you ever noticed that some parents seem a little too invested in their kids' success? Like, who is really chasing the dream here? The child or the parent living through them? With Jane, it wasn't just a case of being too involved. She was the architect of the entire operation. She chose the roles, she chased the deals, she wrote the script, and like any good director, she needed little performers who would follow direction perfectly, obediently, and without asking questions.
I did not choose this life. Music chose me when I was 7 years old and my mom put it in. I started this, my mom put me in this at 7 years old because she was jealous she wasn't getting any money from managing my brother.
That's what Aaron confessed during one of his live streams. It was a sentence that was loaded with pain and resentment and something deeper, a hijacked childhood. So my question is, when does parenting cross the line from guidance to exploitation? And in the case of Jane, did she ever even see that line? And I think it's time that we talk about narcissism. Not the Instagram selfie kind, but the kind that warps entire families.
That she is not yet there. If this is a lie, this is the last thing that would ever happen.
She is a patient there.
If it's real, then I'll be there. You know that.
No, Nick,
You know that.
Mom left 3 messages saying, Nikki, please call me. I'm sick right now. I need help. And that was a week ago. Kind of funny how she doesn't even want to call me after she gets her $5,000.
He said that he saw mom in a bar, like brand new extensions, brand new like dress, spending money at the bar.
And let me be very clear. I am not a licensed professional, so I'm not going to be discussing clinical narcissism. But what I can talk about is narcissism that just about every one of us has. Some of us have it a lot more than others, but it's the type of narcissism where it's not just about vanity. It's about control. It's about a person who believes they are the center of the universe and who demands everyone else orbit around them. I'm sure you've heard of the Greek hunter in mythology, Narcissus. Well, Jane Carter is the modern day Narcissus, but greedier. Narcissus fell in love with his reflection in a pool of water and wasted away staring at it. And Jane, she didn't waste away. She fed on the reflection. And that reflection wasn't in a pool, it was her children. Especially any child that she could groom, manage, and ultimately drain. The kids she deemed talentless were basically cast aside and learned to survive on their own.
I got to experience more a social school thing, and I ended up with like the really bad crowd. But because my parents were so focused on them, I was kind of allowed to just do whatever I wanted to. I would come home so up out of my mind, and they wouldn't even notice. No one really ever noticed me.
BJ and Angel, castaways. The other three, Nick, Aaron, and Leslie, she didn't see them as children with needs or vulnerabilities. She saw them as a mirror of her own ambition, her hunger for relevance, and more importantly, her ticket to money and fame.
Beginning, my parents started out wanting to be parents. They wanted to, have a family, but then it changed, like when they started managing and like they went from parents to managers. And
you lost them.
Yeah, we lost them. And, I don't really think at this point you can get them back.
When they sang, she heard dollar signs. When they suffered, she heard noise. Narcissus may have died staring into a pool. Well, Jane thrived staring into their bank accounts and cashing the checks.
That's your mom. She's got to stop trying to make you guys feel guilty.
I'm just kind of weak.
Stop being weak. You got to step up and be the man. You got to put the foot down and say, that's it. I love you, but I'm not your cash cow anymore. That's what your name used to be, cash cow.
And here's the real tragedy. Narcissus, he only destroyed himself. But Jane's obsession devoured the children around her. Jane is a textbook case. Her children were not equals, and they weren't exactly treated like her children either. They were extensions of her ego. Their success was her achievement. Their failures were personal insults. So here's the question. What happens to a child who grows up believing love is something that you earn by performing? I'll tell you the answer. You get Nick, you get Aaron, you get kids who crave approval and chase fame like it's their only currency that buys affection.
But it was never about a mother-son relationship. It was always about work. And I was just like, sometimes I would just stop and I would be like, Mom, why can't we just fight about, me being a teenager or me growing up? It was all about money.
You get addiction, you get mental illness, you get emotional collapse, and ultimately, you get tragedy. Was Jane a caring mother or a stage mom gone rogue? To be fair, the entertainment industry is absolutely brutal. She was in the eye of that storm. But where's the line between advocating for your child and using them as a financial life raft?
As a son, it tells me that my mother just neglected me. It's making me think about all the times that I've spent alone.
I started this, my mom put me in this at 7 years old because she was jealous she wasn't getting any money from managing my brother.
In the words of Nick and Aaron Carter, who said they had to cut their mother out of their lives because she insisted on acting like a boss instead of a mom.
We were starved for that attention of a motherly figure.
You know what a lot of people out there are saying, guys. She sacrificed her life for these two boys' careers. She gave them every opportunity.
But at
these ungrateful boys.
But at the same time, we gave her a job for 12 years.
How are we supposed to interpret that? It seems like from a psychological standpoint, that's not just resentment. That's displacement, triangulation, and emotional parentification. He wasn't just a son, he was a paycheck, and perhaps even a pawn in his mother's rivalry, and sick rivalry, with his older brother.
Calling up asking if I'm gay. Are you kidding me? Kidding me? Why would you say that to your own son?
Okay, let me explain something.
She bashed me for years and years.
She's sick right now. Let me explain something. Mom doesn't have any friends, Nick. She doesn't have anybody to talk to. Nobody. She was at her house with her chickens and her ducks and her dogs, and that's it.
And this is where the psychology runs deep. What happens to a child whose worth is tied to their fame?
What I wanted to tell you guys was kind of like a little bit of what I've gone through with her.
I want to know.
Okay, I know my biggest fault is not forgiving mom, but I have forgiven her before, and I've been stabbed in the back every time I do forgive her. So what do I do?
Did Jane ever really love Aaron for who he was? Or was it more for what he could do for her?
What's the price of fame for you?
It's been the loss of my family.
What do you think the price of fame was for your family?
Self-destructing. Like a tornado just came through our house and family got tossed everywhere.
Where are your parents? Do they know you're sick?
She's in the main house partying with her boyfriend. She doesn't know I'm sick.
You're going to be okay. You're going to be really lonely, though. You're not going to have any friends.
And if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
You should have got emancipated.
Aaron wasn't just performing for music. He was performing value, performing worthiness, performing being loved. And children who are emotionally parentified, who must care for or protect or emotionally support their parents, they often grow up with deep-rooted issues of self-worth and boundary issues. And Eric was practically screaming it. He just wanted to be loved too.
There's significance to this room.
That bedroom is very unsettling. You got lights everywhere.
Reminds me of my whole life, growing up in a hotel room. Fame took away being a parent. Do you see that one?
Yeah, it was hard.
I was really sad because I just wanted my mom.
I mean, it was so sad the way that Jane, she somehow weaseled her way back into his life and was more invested in setting up three-way calls with quote-unquote record producers than three-way therapy sessions for a crumbling family dynamic, actually stoking fire to the flame.
Appropriate. But there are a few things that you and I need to talk about. Because number one,
Remember, you're on Instagram Live.
I've got you going to hook up with some of the biggest producers in the world right now that want to work with you.
Did you guys hear that? Mama Jane Carter never left. She said she's lined up some of the biggest producers in the world for me to work with. And I told
I want to discuss that with you in private and with this other person. All right?
Okay. Wow. I'm excited.
And I think that's the most horrible part. Who were these producers that were going to work with Aaron? We never heard about it. Was that just something that she was saying to get commissions, to get money from this boy? It's a question that I honestly have.
Well, when he started the allegations, it was.
And in the middle, you have BJ. She has such a tragic story, and she's the sister that was left behind. You rarely hear her name. The middle child, the forgotten one. She wasn't a pop star. She was never a headline. But her story is just as important and just as devastating. BJ grew up watching her siblings get praised and promoted and paraded on stage, while she just tried to survive. Jane never pushed BJ into the spotlight. Not because she wanted to protect her, but because she didn't see value. In fact, she basically said that she was ignored. To Jane, if you weren't profitable, you weren't a priority.
With my brother, after Nick became famous, it got harder because, my parents were so focused on him and so focused on making the most out of it and making let's get this and get this money. And I want my percentage and, this and that. Yeah. And it was like, I was basically, when I was 15 years old, I was basically like free reign to do whatever. I had a car.
Wow. So Aaron actually had your mom call this other girl, Ashley, that's making these allegations against Nick.
Because they were jealous because they thought that me and Nick might reconcile, and they did not want that to happen.
I'll tell you,
my mother has made it wants every person to hate me. She doesn't want anything good for me. She wants to take my daughter. She has made my daughter call her mom. My mom, and I've tried to get her not to do it, and it continues, and she's mommy shamed me in front of my daughter, and my daughter, and now I'm starting to finally get control of it again.
Hell yeah.
I couldn't understand why my daughter was so disrespectful to me, and it was because my mother was. So if my mother was treating...
And BJ was caught in a limbo. Too normal for the fame machine, too unstable for the real world. And as her family publicly imploded and she struggled with substance abuse, she battled deep trauma, and she passed away not long after Aaron, another child that Jane outlived. Another death in a family where love was never unconditional. One of the most disturbing parts of Jane's story is how she manipulated her children against each other. She would play them against each other.
Call this other girl, Ashley, that's making these allegations against Nick.
Because they were jealous because they thought pronounced on my phone records, because I never fucking believed in this family because I've been so discredited.
Wow. So Aaron actually had your mom call this other girl, Ashley, that's...
When Leslie passed away, Jane told Aaron that Nick didn't show up because, quote unquote, he didn't love you.
Why did you not go to your sister's funeral?
The conversation turned into not about her death and not about the actual the passing and what had occurred, and more about themselves. And then I started to get blamed by the rest of the family, and I have a large family. They all went there.
I'm very angry at Nick. I'm very angry.
I don't blame you. I would be angry too if my kid,
your reputation and your career, and just sit there and laugh about it. You would be angry too. But guess what? I'm not going away. I'm here. I'm going to write my book. And when last time I said I was going to write a book.
You guys do know my mom's a New York Times bestseller, right?
Let that sink in. Why would a mother weaponize grief against her own children? Why would she point fingers in a time when they should be unified? Well, here's the answer: because a family divided is easier to control. If her children were united, they might compare notes. They might resist. They might see through her.
Really would like to out and out undermine you.
Meaning, why? Because they know that I'm a threat.
No, because he doesn't want you to be any more famous than him.
Oh, my brother.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we've known that.
And he's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of power.
He's got a lot, and so do I.
Well, honey, you just got to lay low right now. All right? That's my recommendation. If I'm your manager, lay low. Anyways, just like the show The Doctor. Fuck them. Anyways, I have the book right here. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And everybody will want to buy it. And it's going to also spur the reality show with Aaron and me and Bobby Jean and Bella and Melanie, the last members, the real members of the family. It's not the Carter family. It's actually the Spalding family. Nick and your dad have a little spawn all over the planet.
You hear that? Nick and my dad, they got spawns everywhere. They got, they're calling us the manic duo.
She tried to make herself the trustworthy one, the hero in the middle of the chaos when she was the one creating it. And that way she could keep the narrative and the spotlight on herself. BJ said it herself.
Actually had the chance to speak to Jane, and Jane has seen what Aaron's doing, and it's almost like she's completely distanced herself from him now because she sees what he's doing.
And don't get me wrong, Jane had a hard life. Jane came from trauma. She drank heavily in high school. She grew up in an environment where alcohol was the norm. And even her husband at the time, Bob, allegedly was dealing drugs and struggled with his own demons. This wasn't a Hallmark family gone sour. It has been a ticking time bomb from the beginning. But when does the cycle stop?
It really stands out in all of your minds that defines what your family means to you.
Well, it was very hypocritical at certain times because we were taught like it's about family.
And don't lie, don't lie, don't cheat.
So when they would argue, what would you guys do? You said that we would just group together.
It really started off in Florida with all of us. We had always been living in a very chaotic atmosphere.
Ups and downs, a lot of like one day it was big fight and like they would come in the room and be like, we're going to divorce. Who do you want to live with? And then the next day it was like they didn't even remember it.
Because Jane didn't just pass the trauma down to her kids. She wrapped it in sequins and called it success. I feel like she thought that money and fame and awards would fix everything. But trauma doesn't disappear when you're rich. If anything, it hides better. You can't medicate narcissism with money, and you can't heal addiction with applause.
They're so loving towards each other and great. It's all hunky-dory. No, there's nothing like that. It's all bad. Like, I'm sorry, but throughout my 20s, I raised myself.
Well, you were already grown.
No, I didn't get...
We already know why Nick Carter started to distance himself from his mother. He knew that things were going south, and he knew and he felt that he was being mistreated.
You know what I'm frustrated about? Years and years of crying wolf, of tearing up this family emotionally. Even Dad. Understand that I'm mad at both of them, but they done to us out of just anger, like.
And he wanted to break away. And once he did, and once that money was gone, Jane focused on Aaron.
By 2003, Jane and Bob had separated. After a tour, Aaron reached out to his dad, who, Aaron says, showed him documents that convinced him his mother hadn't paid him the money he was owed.
Every show we did, we would probably make about maybe $40,000, $50,000 a show. And it was all gone.
Do you think your mother stole money from you?
I think she did. I mean, I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but I mean, I know that it was gone. And when I came back to my dad, I didn't have a dime.
All the bank accounts of Aaron's were emptied out.
There was no money in Aaron's bank account. Jane and her lawyer point out Aaron and Bob signed a document stating that she did not mishandle Aaron's money.
I think Jane has been saying these things publicly about Aaron. I'll tell you exactly why. She's broke. And she's using Aaron and me and everybody else to stir up publicity so that she can sell a book of lies.
And there was a time that Aaron and Nick both joined forces and rebelled, and Aaron was over it too. He wanted an emancipation from his parents. And that's when Jane sunk her talons into their daughter, Leslie.
Jane says she is estranged from 4 of her 5 children. The last leaf on the tree is 18-year-old Leslie Carter. Leslie wants to be a singer. And yes, her manager is her mom.
I think Leslie's story is one of the most tragic of all. She was the first Carter child to pass away.
So it's going to be fun this time.
Of course, not everyone is so sure about that.
Leslie, my advice to you would be don't let mom manage you.
Promises and hopes that she had for her daughter when things weren't cutting it. It was just so easy for her to strip it away. And Leslie's confidence was so low and so shook by everything that had happened. It's so funny now that Jane points the finger.
A lot more.
And no, you're not going to sit here and say my mom ruined her own life. No, she didn't. No, she did not.
What have I done wrong?
My mom has never done anything else but be the most selfless, most beautiful, precious woman.
Really horrible was Vanity Fair when Leslie was doing her first video, okay, for her show, for her song. Like, wow, it was her first song. He was so jealous that he sent in, him and Kenneth Creer sent in somebody from Vanity Fair. It was supposed to be a closed set. And they went in there and if you read the article about Leslie Carter, what they said she should have been on cocaine. And she was 15 years old.
They said she was on cocaine?
And she should have been on cocaine.
They said that the director. Oh, the director of the Vanity Fair thing said Leslie should have been on because she was overweight?
No, the director of her video brought in Vanity Fair and they wrote an article. And it was Gregory Dark or something. It was some kind of famous producer at the time. And Kenneth Greer and Nick Carter and Backstreet Boys did not want Leslie to have a career. And they changed her.
Back then, we have evidence that Leslie didn't see it that way. Leslie blames Jane for all of this fat shaming, for feeling used. That was part of it.
Then I started doing my music career. And when I got heavier, it didn't work out. I ended up not being somebody that they can make money off of. You know what Mom did? Mom sent me away to a fat camp. She told me it was a horseback riding place. And when I got there, two big men grabbed me. She told me I was going to a summer camp, like to go have some fun. I felt like I was totally thrown away.
I mean, Leslie being sent to fat camp under the false pretense of horseback riding, she was beyond depressed. And her mom lied to her and sent her away. Not because she was unhealthy, but because she wasn't marketable. That's not parenting. That's brand management. We all know what happened with Aaron. I've done so many deep dives on it. We know his aftermath. We know that Jane didn't disappear quietly to grieve her son. She went on talk shows. She stirred controversy online. She released graphic photos of his death scene to the public.
Carter's mom has made a pretty remarkable decision. She has decided she wants the world to see the death scene, where the bathroom where Aaron was found dead. And the reason for this is she is calling out the police and feels like they did not do a proper investigation here.
Both Nick and Angel were mortified. And that's not mourning. That's performance. That's someone that wants attention. Who does that? It's a mother who can't separate her grief from her brand. And then she went on a tirade. I think it was from her same played out playbook, which is to divide and conquer. There were so many messages that this woman went through. Jane said, I just told Angel and Nick how I really feel. She said I'm toxic. I'm just honest. Maybe you should listen to your daughter. And then she goes on to guilt trip her remaining children. You, Angel, and Nick can live forever on the World Wide Web for what you collectively did to Aaron, which was not love him. Unfortunately, I am poor. I would love to have an attorney that would help me get justice for my son. This is a message that allegedly was sent by Lori Knight, which was Aaron's former manager, and she also managed Nick Carter, to Jane. And it says, Jane, I'm checking out of the shit show. I've spent 25 years supporting your children. I have always encouraged their relationship with you if it was healthy and meaningful. Your daughter, Angel, deserves better than the constant barrage of vitriol, criticism, and judgment you bestow on her. I do not wish you any ill will, but quite the contrary. I will pray every single day that someday you will genuinely address your shortcomings and become the mother that your children deserve. I will miss Aaron and that young boy that was so full of wonderment. I am truly sorry for your loss, Lori. And Jane allegedly posted the message and also that she's a succubus.
As he grew up and the trauma of his childhood followed him, the darkness finally took over. And I wish I could speak to all of that, but I'm not a psychologist, and I'll leave that up to why he couldn't figure those things out here on Earth. If anybody doesn't think that man has done stuff for Aaron, they know nothing about Nick. They know nothing about Nick. And Aaron and him started making amends before Aaron's passing. But Aaron would say, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. To Angel, he would say, I'm so proud of you. And I will tell you, Nick, when we were on tour and Aaron was low about something, Nick was the man I called all the time. He would talk to him for hours. He would fly in on his one day off from his own tour to spend 6 hours with Aaron to make him feel better. Angel was his North Star.
And then Jane said, hey, Lauren, Nick, Lori, I hope you will have fun monitoring this. Nick, your brother is dead. Is that what you wanted? He was trying to contact you. Now all you care about is you. This is so heartbreaking. My poor Aaron was used at his death by the Backstreet Boys. Nick hasn't reached out to me, his mother, since Leslie died. Kevin Richardson didn't even know Aaron's real age. And it's so manipulative, in my opinion, because before Aaron passed away, here she is dogging and trashing the mother of his child, which is so Jane. It's quintessential divide and conquer.
Going to be certain things that I'm going to put out there.
Well, but Melanie was about the money. Let's say it right out, because
I mean, that's my mom talking, and I'm gonna say from my own personal experience. I mean,
discovered it.
My mom.
Aaron didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to believe it because
you can tell him. You can. I can't speak on it, but you can speak your piece for sure. So,
no, he wanted true love, and her and her mother figured out how to drain his bank accounts. They did. They drained him. I mean, let's face it. Aaron spends a lot of money too on his stuff too. But how do you go through $800,000 in 1 year and don't put any money back on your house? You don't do that. That doesn't happen.
Mom, all the packages,
packages coming all the time.
Amazon
I was only there a couple of weeks.
You what?
I mean, I might get a package once or twice a year, okay?
But now all of a sudden, she's trying to be her best friend. After Aaron passes, because she has no one else on her side, now she's buttering back up to Melanie, and she says, Aaron would have wanted me to say this. He loved Melanie so much. She loved him. She did everything that she could to save him. Before, she was blaming Melanie. This just shows the manipulation. This is allegedly from Jane as well. Seriously, why did a multimillionaire like Nick Carter diss not only me, his mom, who made him a superstar, but have a talented little brother who idolized him, just let him die? All Aaron ever wanted was to be there for Nick. Why didn't the Backstreet Boys embrace him early on? They were jealous. F. Nick Carter, Anna, Lori, Knight, they were never there for Aaron. They certainly could have been. Why is the question. Greed? Envy? Well, Jane, you should ask yourself those questions. Aaron loved me. He paid for me to my medical because I had no insurance. He was my best child. Nick hasn't spoken to me since he married Lauren Kitt. I hope it was worth it. You neglected your brother all these years, and now he's dead. This is so manipulative. But not only that, remember when Jane was complaining that Melanie was buying all of these online gifts when she was there and she would see packages coming in every day? Well, what's more expensive? Buying a little 2-bit thing on Amazon or paying for medical bills?
Nick is live too. Well, why don't you tell him I'm live with my mom, and that maybe he should call his mom or thank the little brother for taking care of his mom's medical records and medical bills. How about that, Nick?
I can't even imagine how much Aaron ended up spending on his mom.
And Aaron took all of the money from the doctor's show, which he was supposed to split with my mom.
And is a manager supposed to be getting 50%? And here's what's so bewildering. After all of the attacks, after all of the trash talking online, after all of the blaming the deaths of Aaron on her children, she writes a message like this. It's really so sad that something like this would not bring a family together to love and support each other. Unfortunately, it's about the money. It always has been. Nick has the money. He thinks that's what we all want from him. We don't. Well, you could have fooled me. That's almost all she ever talks about. I'm very disappointed with her choices. Don't forget, I am a writer. New York Times bestseller. Also, I believe in God. Isn't that a writer of you writing a book on your teenage son and his secrets? I will get justice for him. Obviously, Nick and Angel don't care because they were estranged. I guarantee you that Lauren and Lori want his death to go away. Keep that celebrity money machine going for y'all. I don't need the money or the publicity. All I've ever wanted was a family that had success and could live a nice life. As of today, only 2 of Jane's 5 children are alive. Leslie is gone. Aaron, gone. BJ, gone. And what remains is silence. It's the kind that comes when too much has been said and not enough has been healed. Angel, Aaron's twin, has spoken publicly about the damage that this family has endured, and she believes that addiction played a key role. But anyone listening closely can hear what she's not saying. That the dysfunction wasn't just a backdrop. It was the whole script. Jane Carter is going to go down in pop culture history as one of the worst stage moms ever. And to her children, she wasn't a headline. She was supposed to be home. And that's what makes this story so extremely heartbreaking. Because home is supposed to be the safest place. But for the Carter kids, it was not.
So when they would argue, what would you guys do? You said that we would just group together.
Hide and
We would all hide together.
They would come in and they would ask us, who do you want to live with? You have to pick right now. We're divorcing.
She didn't just raise stars. She didn't just raise sons and daughters. She raised survivors. She raised addicts. She raised and lost children. And in the end, she outlived almost all of them. And there's a word for that kind of damage. It's not just bad parenting. It's generational theft. And the price is paid in lives. Did Jane suffer too? Absolutely. And that's where it's so complicated because Jane clearly has gone through her own traumas. There's allegations of substance abuse, emotional instability, toxic family patterns. But suffering doesn't excuse harm, especially when it's passed down like a legacy. This is intergenerational trauma, when unresolved emotions and pain and abuse and dysfunction is passed from parent to child, often unconsciously. And Jane may not have intentionally gone out to exploit her son, but it happened, and the damage is in plain writing. In the end, the Carter family wasn't destroyed by fame. It was destroyed by the illusion that fame is love, that applause is affection, and that profit equals parenting. Her children were born with light. They didn't need to be polished or molded or monetized. They needed to be protected. And instead, they were processed.
Jane, in turn, has her own dreams for the future, rooted in the hard lessons of her past.
I learned something out of it, and that's one thing that I can say, that I learned something positive out of this whole thing. It taught me a really big lesson, that all the material things in the world are not important compared to the amount of time that you could spend with your children.
feeling like I'm way too sensitive. I don't think I'm too sensitive. I think I want to talk. I want to tell people. I want somebody to listen.
I just want to be loved too, baby.
Okay.
Me too.
Aaron was a child who begged to be seen beyond the spotlight and died in its shadow. Leslie was a woman desperate to be heard for her own voice that was silenced before her story could unfold. BJ was never even offered a stage, only suffering, and she was off script and unseen. And Nick, he's still standing. Angel, she's still standing. And sometimes that survival carries the heaviest scars.
Separated when we were 11 years old. I just, he was really attached to my mom. And I think for me, because I had, it was probably around 11, 12 years old, when my parents separated, and they separated for about 5 months, and Erin went to live with my mom, and I chose my dad. And she wanted me to live with her, but because I think she wanted to keep the twins together, but I always gravitated toward the parent that was, I felt was more responsible, because I had some years with my mom that were not really pleasant.
Being a parent isn't about creating stars. It's about creating safety. And if your love burns brighter when they shine, but disappears when they break, then you weren't raising a child. You were raising a brand. Now, there is so much more to the Carter story. If you haven't seen it in its entirety, you need to go back. I have a massive deep dive on everything, not just Jane, but the entire family, Bob, their humble beginnings. And I implore you to watch this with me from the beginning. So click here so we can watch together.